And probably more interviews with customers that were launching new stores back then would have avoided that big miss. We ended up selling the company after about 10 years, but definitely not at the level that we would have sold had we jumped on the software as a service bandwagon. And then I went into email marketing. E-commerce and email marketing go hand to hand, and so I joined a company that some friends of mine had started in Italy. So I was in the US but working for this Italian company. MailUp was kind of the MailChimp of Italy. And at MailUp I was the head of product for a few years. And in 2014 we rebuilt the internal drag and drop visual builder to build emails. And about a year later or so, we decided to take that product, launch it on the web as a standalone product. And it was called Be the Best Email Editor, and free because we made it free on the web. And it kind of resonated with a lot of people. And so over time, it became its own company. And now we have about 100 people, over 10 million in recurring revenue, and people all over the place. Tori works with me, and she's fantastic. And I'm sure we'll have more people in this area. But right now, we're in 15 US states and Europe, etc. So BEEfree is a drag and drop builder, very much product led. So people go to BEEfree.io, they can start using the product right away and giving us a ton of feedback. And so the users are people that are just designing emails and landing pages for their own business. But over 70% of our revenue actually comes from software companies that make a simple make versus buy decision, and instead of building their own drag and drop builder, which is kind of a big engineering project, they embed our builder that can be fully customized. And so a lot of the business actually comes from other software companies that are taking that piece of the overall puzzle, and instead of creating their own, they use ours. So let's get to the talk of today, which is, again, really close to my heart and to the work that we all product people do every day. And how do we build products that people actually want? And on the other side, why so many products fail? So there have been many studies over the years. This was a study at Harvard Business Review many years ago by Clay Christensen. And back then they found of about 30,000 products launched in the United States every year, about 90-95% of them fail. In many cases, it's companies with a ton of budgets, research teams, etc. It happens to all of us, and it's not just the product. It might be a new feature in a product, right, that we launch and nobody uses. And why is that? And again, it's not really connected to the resources. That's something to kind of reflect on. It's not like, okay, well, I don't have enough resources, because it happens to everybody, even the companies that have the most amount of resources in the world. So let's look at some of them, for example. Some of you are old enough, like me, to remember the Zune player that Microsoft launched to try to compete with the iPod. This was 2006, and they tried hard to present the product and use different colors. If you remember, the iPod was only white when it was launched, etc. They tried for many years and never caught on. And in the end, when they did interviews with some of the people that worked on it, fundamentally there was no real reason for somebody to choose the Zune versus the iPod. And Apple products, as you know, go beyond just the product itself. They become like a fashion item, etc. So convincing a kid not to wear that fashion item and instead use the Zune, proved to be impossible. Another one, we have somebody here that's working on glasses. So Google Glass is a famous example of a really cool product that when it was launched, it could do so many things, but actually people couldn't figure out exactly what it was for. And beyond that, why as a consumer, because it was launched as a consumer product, why as a consumer I would shell out $1,500 to get this really cool toy that, however, it wasn't really clear what it was really for. Google then turned it into an enterprise product in 2017, relaunched it for the manufacturing industry, healthcare industry, and as an enterprise product, actually it had some success. And then they retired it in 2023 while working on other things. This is one of my favorites because Apple's really good at building products. And again, it happens to everybody, right? That you put out the Ping social network. How many of you was ever on the Ping social network?
Oh, yeah.
You were?
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else? Because normally when I give this workshop, nobody ever tried it. In this case, at least Doug did. But so
I don't know why I did.
well, but anyway, this was an attempt by Apple to put a social layer on top of iTunes. Except people were already talking socially about the music, just not on the Ping network. They were using Facebook and Twitter. In fact, when they retired it just 2 years later after launching it, they simply replaced it with an integration with Facebook and Twitter. One of my very favorites, though, is this one, because we're talking about one of the largest companies in the world, unlimited budget, right, huge market. And the interesting thing is here, they did a ton of work. They launched the Amazon Fire Phone in the summer of 2014 in a partnership with AT&T and retired the product in less than a year. Apparently when they launched it, AT&T stores reported that literally nobody was interested in the product, right? And now, of course, it's easy for us to say, well, of course, like, why another phone? In fact, everybody could not figure out why. And again, back to the statement that a phone is not just a phone, right? If you ask my kids, I'm the only one in my family that uses an Android phone. Asking my kids to use Android instead of iPhone would have been crazy, right? The iPhone is the thing, the cool thing. There's no way that a kid in high school would have an Android phone, or very few, and even less so a Fire Phone. Anyway, we'll talk more about the Fire Phone later, but it was one of those cases where one of the best companies in the world with some of the smartest product people in the world still failed at that fundamental question of, does the world need another phone? What are people trying to do with their phone? What is it that they can't do with the phone that they have today? Why does that happen all the time, right? And we'll explode this statement throughout the conversation today, but ultimately, that's why we make this mistake all the time. We marry an exciting solution, the shiny new object, the idea that we had, that we're really excited about. We marry that instead of falling in love with the problem that we're trying to solve, right? And really dig into, okay, but what's wrong with the iPhone? What is wrong with your iPhone? And a lot of people would have said, I don't know, nothing. Or maybe they would have said something, and maybe the Fire Phone would have been the solution to that something, but it wasn't. And so when we talk about it that way, then what we're saying is that we want to dig into what are people trying to do? And when you change that question into a easier to remember way to say it is, what job are they trying to get done? And so if there is a job that they're trying to get done, then the way they do that job could be a product, could be a service, could be nothing, because they decide that the job is not important enough to do anything about it. It could be a myriad of things. And if you think about being bored, for example, all of a sudden a newspaper is a direct competitor of social media, or a direct competitor of a book, or a direct competitor of taking a walk at the airport, right? I'm bored at the airport, and the consideration set of what I could do in those 30 minutes of boredom before getting on the flight is crazy. It's a consideration set that has products in there that have nothing to do with each other. You would never say that a walk is a competitor of a book. But in that case, it is. You're making a decision of whether you're going to open up this new book that you brought with you on the trip, or just take a walk before your flight. So what does job really mean? Like in that case, I don't want to be bored for 30 minutes. Right? I want to make some small little progress in my life. I'm bored right now. I know my flight is in 30 minutes. What am I going to do with these 30 minutes? It's just a little, I'm not saving, the world. I'm not finding the reason why I exist. I just want to make a little bit of progress in my life. This, though, is fundamental because people don't want our products. People don't need our products. They don't need our services. What they need and what they want is to make that progress. Whether it's big or small, that puts us in a very humble state of mind of saying, okay, what is it that they're trying to do? What is it that I can dig up about where they're at and where they're going? And let's talk about where you're at and where you're going with the concept of a car. What job does a car do for you? Anybody?
Point A to point B.
From point A to point B, absolutely. That's why the Model T was created. Just get me from point A to point B faster. And one of the reasons why Ford created just one car, the same car for everybody, one color, because that's what it does. So I'm going to get it out of the manufacturing plant as fast as I can, the cheapest price, and we're done. Except for, that's not the only thing that a car does, right? What else does it?
It entertains.
It entertains. Very different from just, right? And the car that entertains you is probably a different car from the Model T, right? You're probably up here with me of like, hey, I'm going to play my midlife crisis card, and I want that car. And I'm tired. I have 4 kids. I've driven a lot of these cars. I'm like, no more. What else does a car do?
So a car can be a status symbol.
Status symbol, absolutely. Anything else?
It's a phone. I mean, isn't a Tesla like a $60,000 iPhone?
That too. Like I can get it. It's like a mobile office. It's like yes.
Well, I was gonna say instead of entertaining, it's for me productivity, right? I
Yes.
have to use that time to be doing something other than just getting from point A to point B. So
Yeah.
calling my family, listening to a podcast.
Totally.
Finding ways to use that time productively.
So at that point, the type of entertainment system that the car has becomes like a big, right? A big feature. Like it might be a reason for you not to buy an older car, where it's harder to hook up, Apple Car, whatever it's called, CarPlay.
For some, unfortunately, it's a residence.
It is, absolutely. And if that is a concern, where look, then I'm going back to the minivan, right? How about this car? Especially in the early days, what was the reason to buy this car? And electric cars at the beginning were pretty ugly. Now they're getting better, but what was the reason for that car?
Virtue signaling.
Absolutely, like almost a political statement of like, this matters, you people, you don't get it. Like we're all gonna die, right? And like you're making a strong statement, like especially as an early adopter, was a pain in the butt. I can't charge it, costs money, political statement, or even like you wanting to help out, right? Like an emotional decision of like, I want to be part of the solution. And then here's what Doug was saying, right? Like this is the car that gets you from like A to B. I just need to get to work or get the kids to school. Now here's the interesting thing that when in marketing we talk a lot about personas, segments of the market, all this stuff. It could be the same family that owns all 4 of these because they have jobs to be done. They're different, and maybe one person in the family really feels strongly about climate, etc. And I'm playing the middle life crisis card, so I want that one. And we still need the minivan because not all the kids are gone, etc. Right? So personas are important because the fact that I'm my age, I'm more of a target for the convertible, which I haven't bought yet, but we'll see. But so they're important, but they're not the whole picture. Like they don't help you enough understanding why people make decisions. Why a new car? When do you buy a new car? She mentioned it, right? I have an old car. I can't really listen to podcasts, or it's a pain in the neck. I might buy a new car because of that. Any other reasons why you buy a new car?
Image.
True, like status symbol, you're like, yeah.
Everything's falling apart.
There we go. Like that's a strong reason, right? It's just not working anymore. Any other reasons?
Lifestyle inflation, like making more money, so.
Sure, you're feeling like I feel
Storage.
better about myself. Like, hey, I deserve this. I worked for years. Like, I deserve a better car. Totally. Any other reason?
Safety features, like cameras around.
Some features, right? As product people, sometimes that's the mistake that we make of like immediately going into the feature part. But typically a feature is an answer to something, right? Like for example, give me an example of a feature that you really like because what problem does it solve you?
You can't lease a car unless it's new, if you want to lease.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
What's a feature that you really like that, and what problem does it solve for you?
So I have a Honda Civic, so when I do a right turn blinker, there's a little camera that shows it.
Great.
So I don't have to clean my neck as much.
Perfect. So like, for example, something like a safety, right? So I actually find that really useful. Awesome. Now,
Adventure.
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of the car manufacturers advertise, like, get this Jeep or whatever it is, and you'll have, ultimate adventure. So there's a
the promise of like
promise of the big
yeah.
American dream.
Lifestyle.
fun
Around.
lifestyle. We're gonna go visit all that. And it's funny because in some of those commercials, I mean, they take these cars to some crazy places, right? Like what is it, Land Rover or Range Rover, where they go in the
Yeah.
limit of the national park. First of all, none of us can get to that place with a car. Anyway, they're pitching you. Now, we don't buy a new car all the time, right? We have these conversations or these thoughts in our head, maybe often. We don't buy a new car all the time. So, when do we really buy a car? The answer is normally when we answer yes to both of these questions. And her example was the clearest one, right? The car is broken and it literally doesn't drive anymore. Is there something wrong with the car? Yes, it's broken. Is it wrong enough? Yeah, I cannot drive it. So I'm answering yes to both questions. I'm probably going to look for a car pretty darn fast. Now, if it were, for example, the podcast, right? So she could say, is there something wrong with the car? Yeah, like I can't have CarPlay, so I have to figure out a crazy way to connect the phone to the audio system in the car. It's a pain in the neck, but it's fine. Like I'll deal with it, right? It's wrong, but it might not be wrong enough to really go to the next step, right? And so when we launch new products or new features in a product, it's super important to dig into this. Like, first of all, okay, I identified a problem some people have. How do they feel about that problem? Do they feel like something is really wrong, right? And then, is it wrong enough for them to make a change? Because we tend not to want to make changes. And we'll go more into this later. A great example of this, back to the Fire Phone, that was a clear example of, I don't even know if there was something wrong with the iPhone, but even if it was, it clearly was not wrong enough for people to say, I'm going to drop my iPhone and pick the Fire Phone, right? Both things need to be true at the same time. There has to be something wrong and wrong enough so that, and it could be positive, right? Like it could be, okay, I'm not being adventurous enough, and I have more time, I have more money, I want to, spend time with my kids in the summer, and so it's wrong enough that I get my four-wheeler, right? Like it's not necessarily negative. It could be that it's on the positive side, but still I have to perceive it as I want to fix that badly enough that I make a change. A great example of this is mobile wallets. And The reason is that the technology's been there actually for a long, long time. So companies, especially here in Silicon Valley, started talking about mobile wallets 10 years ago and spending a ton of money and research on it. And it's one of those cases where when you ask people, of course they say yes, right? And normally those questions are kind of useless. So when they ask people, hey, would you be interested in a mobile wallet? Yes. And then nobody used it. For a long time, less than 5% of iPhone users ever used the paying feature. And this went on for a long time. In fact, Tim Cook actually gave a presentation years ago, in 2015, basically announcing Apple Pay, and he even said 2015 was going to be the year of Apple Pay. And then nothing happened. 2016, 17, by 2018, he had to admit, okay, it's not taking off as fast as I thought. We were using other things in the US, right? Our credit cards, etc. And they were fine. At the same time in China, they were already, in 2018, 80% of the market was already using WeChat to pay. How many people do you think had credit cards in China before WeChat? Almost nobody. Nobody, right? So they were like comparing, is there something wrong with like bringing around all the cash? There was a lot more wrong there than there was here. And in fact, when they asked people, Apple was trying to figure out, okay, but what's going on here? Like, why is it? The reason is that doing this pretty fast. Like it took me, 2 seconds? Maybe less than 2 seconds? So if I'm pitching speed at checkout, a lot of people are like, okay, what am I going to say? Like 1 second at checkout? And then a lot of people actually are not as sophisticated as the younger generation, where they're super fast with their phone, right? I actually want to pick the credit card that I want to use. Using the phone was actually not perceived as a improvement. Checkout speed was pretty much the same. And some of the other benefits were just not there. People were not seeing them. So for many, many years, nobody used those payment methods. At Walmart, though, almost 1/4 of the people were actually using the payment app to pay at Walmart. Why? It had nothing to do with speed at checkout, but this payment app allowed you to use all the coupons electronically. So whereas 10 years earlier, there were people literally like clipping, right, in the newspaper, that's a pain in the neck. So now you're talking about a little bit of progress in my life. Like, I don't want to spend half an hour, right, cutting things and bringing them to Walmart. And so in their case, for example, this feature called the savings catcher, that convinced 25% of the people to actually use the application to pay. Another application that got popular pretty fast to pay that you can think of, what's another application that you started using pretty early on in a retail store?
Not a retail store, but Venmo.
Okay, Venmo to pay other people, correct. What about a retail environment? Like, what's one of the first applications that you used to pay for stuff that you can remember?
iTunes, or the card,
In a retail shop.
In a retail shop.
Tap and pay?
But what was the shop? Tap and pay. Yeah, you're already using a mobile wallet. Can you think of what are the first shopping experiences where you actually sort of pay digitally?
Apple Store.
Apple Store?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I don't do it, but Starbucks, I think.
Starbucks was the most used payment application for a long time. Why? Again, nothing to do with speed at checkout. Free coffee. Because by using the startup app, I would get the stars and then get free coffee. And so that was a little bit of progress in my life. Like after a while, I'm going to get my free coffee. And so this was, again, back in 2018, actually Starbucks had more users than Apple Pay itself. And then what do you think happened to mobile payments in the last 4 or 5 years.
I'm sure they increased a lot, especially because of COVID.
COVID happened,
Yeah.
right? COVID happened. And all of a sudden, touchless payments had nothing to do with speed at checkout, but rather, I'm scared. I don't touch anything, right? And the people at the cash register, they're like, don't touch anything. Like what we were selling then was not speed at checkout at all. It was something completely different. And in some cases, also, you had no options. Like that was the only thing that you were allowed to do, right? And so all of a sudden, of course, 60% growth in mobile wallets in 1 year. And then people also kind of got used to it. And now there's a lot of people who use mobile wallets. But again, what was wrong with speed at checkout before? Not that much, or at least not enough to make a change in your habits. What was wrong with COVID? A lot. People were scared, regulations, all kinds of things, and then all of a sudden the behavior changes, very, very quickly. So again, what's wrong needs to be wrong enough for people to make a change. Now, let's dive a little bit more into what happens in all of our decisions to adopt a new product or a new service, even after we've said, okay, this is wrong, the car is not working, and not to the point of, okay, I get it fixed, it's really not working, so now I'm looking for a new car, okay? What are the forces at play that we should consider as we build products and services and that allow us to kind of like put things in buckets? And this is a framework, again, part of the Jobs to be Done framework that I like a lot because it helps us, and we'll see it when we do our quick interview in a few minutes. It helps us understand that there's many things at play. So, for example, let's talk about the example of the phone. So, what's pushing you in the direction of a new phone? How many of you use Android here and not an iPhone? Anybody on Android? Okay. Those that use Android actually know, and what I found is most people that use the iPhone don't know, that Android has actually 2 phones in one, right? You can switch from personal to business with 1 click, and you have completely separate applications. So you have compliance with like security policies in your company. One of the reasons why Apple never did this is that you have to buy 2 phones, or find some other software that you put on top. So one reason that pushes you into maybe like, okay, should I switch to Android, is you find out, and you're like, well, it would be nice to switch from business to personal email, for example, right? And having the 2 compartmentalized. Pool is like ads and things like that, right? That pull you into the direction. So I saw, for example, today an ad for the new Pixel phone by Google. It was a folding phone. Like all the marketing that we do typically goes into this bucket, right? The attraction of a new product. And as we do marketing, we need to remember that all of these 4 things, we're only working on this. We're pulling people into the promises of the new thing. Like I promise you that I'm going to save time, save money, give you new features, etc. Right? So what's wrong with the status quo pushes you, and then all the marketing, especially if it's well done, it will pull you, right? And then these 2 things at the bottom that push in the other direction. One that's super important, especially when you're a startup, is anxiety, right? You are new. There's going to be a lot of anxiety in your first potential buyers about, are you going to be around in 5 years? How reliable is your product? How can you give me peace of mind, right? There's a lot of anxiety, and it could be anxiety for new technology, or again, a company that I don't know, or whatever it is. There's a lot of anxiety actually plays a big role into pushing people away from adopting a new product. And then habits. The more I've been using a product, the stronger the habit. And think about mobile wallets, right? people have been using credit cards in this country forever. Like, why do I need to change? Like, I'm used to like picking my credit card and choosing which credit card to pay with, et cetera, et cetera. So there's these forces at play, and they're always at play in pretty much any decision that we make as a buyer of something new. They may be stronger or weaker, and it'll be interesting to like find out when we do this interview in just a few minutes. So if you kind of like this idea of like, okay, I need to find what's wrong, understand if it's wrong enough, understand the forces at play, right? Dig into the problem. How do you do it? And especially if you are a startup, maybe that's working on something new, the product doesn't even exist. I remember some friends of mine that started a sleeping device company years ago. The device did not exist. And it's called 8 Sleep. And now they're successful. Back then, they literally would go to a store that sold mattresses and just bother people. It's like they were observing what they were doing, what people were doing, at Macy's, etc., and just ask questions like politely. Hey, can I ask you just one question about the mattress that you're buying? Like, why are you buying it? To try to understand if one of the fundamental reasons why people were buying a new mattress was lack of sleep, of like, are you having problems with, because they were trying to solve that without having you buy a new mattress, right? Their technology is, it's actually a layer that you put on your existing mattress, and it will help you sleep better. So what you do when you don't even have a product or a new service or a new something, you're still building it, is just observe what people are doing today, ask them questions, listen carefully to what's wrong. And that's one of the skills that takes time to develop, right? Like really digging into what's wrong and uncovering potentially opportunities that way. And finding out the workarounds is super interesting. Like a workaround sometimes when your mattress is uncomfortable. What's a workaround that you've used in the past? If you can't sleep and your mattress is uncomfortable, where do you end up?
Couch?
The couch, right? That's a work that somebody literally is sleeping on the couch. Like if you were finding, right, that's probably very high intent for somebody that's interested in something new. If the product already exists, there is where the persona matters. Like let's try to define who's my ideal customer, and then let's talk to them. Not 100 of them. You don't need to interview 100 people. Already like a dozen people, if you do a deep interview into what we're talking about, is enough. So that's what we're going to try to do in this jobs to be done interview that I'm going to do with one of you. Anybody here that has bought something that's over $100 or $150 in the last 3 months or so? Anybody? Okay, Doug? What did you buy?
A wing foil board.
Ooh, all right, wing foil board. How about you?
Wireless microphones for podcasting.
Wireless microphones. Anybody else?
A new bike rack that fits in the hitch in the back of the car.
Bike rack?
A larger backpacking tent.
A backpacking
Tent.
tent. Okay. All right. Quick vote. Do we want to hear about buying the wing foil, the earphones, and then it was the backpacking, and then what was your?
Bike rack.
Bike rack. Okay, wing foil. Who wants to hear about the wing foil? 4 or 5 people. The podcasting equipment? 3 people. Okay, bike rack? Oh, like almost 10, right? And backpacking equipment?
Wow.
It's like a close one between bike rack and backpacking. Okay, let's do it again. Between bike rack, backpacking, it's almost split. Let's do the bike rack. Let's do the bike. Oh yeah, or you could do.
I wasn't gonna say it because I thought it was boring, but air fryer, it does everything. It's like an all-in-one machine. It
You bought an air
fries.
fryer?
I did.
You guys want to hear bike rack or air fryer?
Kind of introduces it.
Air fryer.
Air fryer?
Yeah.
No, bike rack. Wait, come on. So what we're going to try to do here, and I'll basically come on up, and I forgot your name.
Eric.
Eric. All right. So what we're going to do with Eric is try to go on this journey where he ended up here. Are you happy with the bike rack?
Absolutely.
Okay, he's over here. He's delighted about the bike rack. And we're going to try to walk with him on this path to understand, what happened, and uncover some of the journey that he was on. Because in a jobs to be done interview, again, we want to uncover the what forces were at play, and we're going to do that by going on that journey. What I would like you to do, as you listen to what we're going to talk about, try to note down or remember things that fall into those 4 buckets. Okay, push, pull, anxiety, and habit. Okay, and either write it down or keep it, because then we're going to reflect on what we found. When you do these jobs to be done interview, they need to be like very casual interviews because you're gonna go deep into the why, right? And so one technique is and I'll start the interview now. So thanks for taking your time today to talk about your purchasing decision. It helps us build better product. It's awesome. So thank you. Imagine that I'm filming a documentary, okay? And so I might ask you some questions that are kind of weird, but it's because I'm basically filming a documentary about what you did. And so I need to understand, what was the context and setting up the scene, okay? Okay, so you said you bought a bike rack. When did you buy it?
About a month ago.
And how did you buy it?
I ordered it online.
Ordered it online, okay. Which store did you buy it from?
From the manufacturer. It's One Up.
Manufacturer,
Yeah,
okay.
One Up rack, yeah.
Got it. And did you go to other online stores as well?
A little bit of research, and then like at REI, looking at different types of racks. It was
Okay.
kind of driven by a new car.
Okay.
And situations around that caused me to need a new rack.
Got it. Did you spend a lot of money on this? Is that a product that costs a lot of money?
Yeah, it was about $900.
Okay. And did you buy the one that cost the most or the least?
There are more expensive ones, but yeah, it's on the high side for sure.
On the high side.
Yeah.
Got it. And so you mentioned that you bought a new car. When did you buy the new car?
Like 5 months ago.
5 months ago. Okay. So 5 months ago you bought a new car, and do you bike a lot? Okay. And what did you do in those 5 months that you didn't have the bike rack?
Didn't go with the car with the bike anywhere. So,
Okay.
Or put it inside the car.
You had to put the bike inside the car. Was that easy?
Yeah, no, it was kind of a headache,
Okay.
scratching the car and dirty bikes, and yeah.
Did you bike less because you couldn't load the bike easily in those 5
Not
months?
necessarily, but I didn't get a chance to ride with friends or go to places that I would like to go to.
Okay.
So I just rode from the house instead of going to Nelson Marks, for instance.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so 5 months ago you got the new car, and when did you start thinking about, okay, I gotta get a new bike rack for the new car?
Well, just the summer and riding opportunities, and I also got an electric bike, and so
Okay, got it.
that's a heavier bike, and
Yeah.
there's reasons why the old setup didn't work.
And the electric bike, can you get that into the car?
It's harder.
Harder, okay.
Hard, yeah.
So you got the new car. So it sounds like, did you start thinking about the new bike rack pretty soon after getting the new car?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you started thinking about the bike rack, let's say 4 months ago. Is that roughly okay?
Yeah.
So how did you start the research?
Started asking people that had bikes, wrecks, what they liked or didn't like about theirs. Just started paying attention to what people were using. One of the fundamental things was my old car, I could put the bike on the roof.
Yeah.
And this is a bigger car, harder to get up on the roof, and electric car, so I knew I wanted to have something that didn't have as much drag. So something that went in the back. You know, the holding concept of a rack in the back of your car instead of on top was part of the drive to make that change.
So you talked to a bunch of friends. Did you go online to like check out reviews and that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
How like if you had to say like just roughly how much time did you spend on the research?
Probably too much. Probably in six or 8 hours maybe over the course of, you know.
Yeah, or probably even more. You're just being shy.
Yeah.
That's like,
probably.
how many different brands did you consider?
Probably four-ish, you know.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
And did you build your own little pros and cons, Google sheet?
No
or?
spreadsheet matrix.
No spreadsheet.
not on
Okay.
this one.
Okay. Did you print out some stuff, or you kind of just?
Print it out? No, just collecting thoughts. You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
And were you the only one making this decision in your house? It was you. Okay. Nobody else. Okay. Were the rest of your family was okay with you spending a ton of money on this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Not really.
Don't answer.
A few honey points there that you know. Okay.
And so then at some point you just went for it. So what happened? Because it took about like 3-4 months, right?
Yeah.
So what happened that you just went for it?
Went for it, bought it, installed it, used it. You know, thumbs up.
But do you remember why that day?
That I bought it?
Yeah.
The day that I bought it? Well, I just was confident enough in the decision at that point to take the decision. You know.
Okay. And did you end up buying something that some of your friends had?
No. Actually, one of my close friends had a different one.
Okay.
But you know, listening to him and actually helping him to take it off the car and put it in the garage was part of the. Oh, that was heavy and uncomfortable, and you know, so getting a chance to touch others and realize that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you end up buying from a brand that you had bought from before?
No, never.
Okay. Awesome. Hey,
Yeah.
thanks so much. It was
All right.
super useful.
Yeah.
So again, imagine that I'm running a company that sells bike racks. So in a job to be on interview, it would have taken even longer. We would have gone into even more details. But I uncovered a ton of stuff, right, in this interview. So let's go. What was the, again, push, pull, anxiety, and habits, right? What was the push?
New car,
New car?
no rack.
No rack? And what? Oh, sorry about that. Yeah. What else? What else pushed him?
You buy.
New bike. How about What was it? What was his workaround?
Putting it in.
Putting it in the car, which, you know, especially when it's dirty. New car, dirty bike. Probably not, right? Not ideal. Anything else that was pushing him?
Not
They
going.
kept him from doing previous activities.
Yeah. Yep.
Heavier bike, e-bike.
Heavier bike, right? Anything else that was pushing him?
Oh, I just couldn't go to all the same places that.
Yeah, yeah. Couldn't go, you know, to Nicene marks, etc. So we got a good, solid list of things in that bucket that I could use for what, for example? Those are statements that would be super useful to which part of my company? Marketing, right? Absolutely. Like imagine, for example, an image of somebody that's getting the car inside the car, the bike inside the car, all dirty, right? Like these are, again, out of this stuff comes things that are so useful to the entire organization. Marketing loves that stuff. Like when you give them the actual thing that they can go creative around, right? Or imagine somebody like trying to lift the e-bike that's 1 million pounds, right, on top of the, yeah. Pull. What was pulling him in the direction of the product that he ended up? Was it brand?
No, it was the features.
Not brand, right? He didn't buy from a brand that he used before.
Functional ease.
functional features. What else? Testimonials. Okay. Another thing that I would give to my marketing team. Hey, he checked a bunch of reviews, right? Make sure in marketing, make sure that you get going on our reviews. Like make sure that we're reviewed. Maybe do a incentivized review campaign, whatever it is. Like, what else he did? What else pulled in? Whom did he talk to? He talked to
REI.
maybe,
Yeah.
but he also talked to
Friends.
friends.
Yeah.
Word of mouth, right? Good old word of mouth.
Yeah.
So the importance of word of mouth, and as a company, I can actually promote word of mouth by giving existing customers reasons to, like, as for example, people do with stickers, and hey, I'm going to send you some stickers and you put on your car, whatever it is. Anything else that pulled them in the direction of that product?
The lightness of it, I think that goes to the function.
Okay, probably but worked with the car, etc. But yeah, we didn't hear a ton of that. But he obviously spent time online, so there were probably some sites. Maybe they were done better than others. That kind of stuff. Anxiety. Well, was there any anxiety in his decision about the new product?
I think the 6 to 8 hours of research online betoken some
Right.
the wrong decision.
Yeah.
Yeah. He didn't. Yes, because he was really into this product. So he didn't. There wasn't a lot of anxiety in his description, right? In fact, he ended up going with a brand that he hadn't used before. So correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe there wasn't a ton of anxiety around.
There's anxiety around, could it be stolen easily? Because
Okay.
you got to park somewhere, you have your rack
Yeah.
in the back.
Oh, yeah.
So there was anxiety around that. That was part
Okay,
of the
okay.
process, yeah.
Okay.
Process.
What is that still about the honeydew?
That was a joke.
Oh, that's anxiety right there.
What kind of a car did you buy?
Rivian?
Okay, great.
Yeah.
That kind of puts it in perspective.
Yeah.
Rivian SUV, so,
Nice.
real
Yeah.
tall, trying to
Yeah.
get it up on top.
Yeah.
Anxiety about price? Not a ton, right? Which actually happens quite often when you talk about hobbies and people that are really into something. They might save on milk, but I'm buying the skis I want. It's like, so price sensitivity is normally actually pretty low. So if I'm a company, awesome. It means I don't need to be, bottom of the market. It's not the one thing that I need to pay attention to. If I were running that company, I would say price is not going to be the one thing that we're going to go crazy about. Other things, right? Reviews and all that. Habits. Anything else that he mentioned about habits that prevented him from adopting this product?
Well, he wanted to ride it in icing marks, but he figured he'd have to get that product to do that.
Yeah, so that was actually a habit that pushed him instead of preventing him.
Yeah.
So probably, yeah, I didn't hear much. I don't know if you did, but like habits that would prevent him, right? Okay, and the other thing that we found that was pretty interesting is it actually took him 4 months to make this decision, right? A lot of decisions actually take a long time, which as a company, again, it's good. It means that I have time to follow up, and maybe if he, left an email, do an email series to give him some more information. From his first thought was pretty much at the time when he bought the car, but this is useful because let's imagine it's a different product, and we actually find out after 10, 12 interviews that this only takes like 3 days, right, or something like that. Then you think about the purchasing process in a whole different way. It means there's urgency there, right? There are different things that you need to do. So bottom line is, normally you don't need to do 100 of these. If I interviewed 12 people, 15 people about a bike rack that they bought, I would probably find some patterns that are repeated. And again, some of the information that comes from those patterns are super useful, not just for product, but for all the other pieces of the company, marketing, sales, etc. So it's by using a simple little framework like this is also super easy to share with the rest of the company, right? You can also share, if you are allowed to, maybe the video interview. We did that a lot at our company. There's now great software that allows you to even say, okay, go listen to this minute and a half of that interview. And yeah, you find that in the end, what happens is just increasing clarity about what matters. And so, again, you're digging more and more into the why he bought the bike rack, what mattered to him as he bought the bike rack that he ended up buying. And so you just have more clarity that comes from that falling in love with the process that your customers went through, with the problems that we're trying to solve. And so then the product decisions that you make are directly linked to those things, to the point that you could even link to that interview, right? Like you say, we're going to do this feature because of, go listen to these 5 interviews, go see it there. Even the words that you use in your marketing are probably going to be his words, not my words. So that plays a huge role. Again, I like doing this workshop because it reminds me about all this stuff. And it's, Tori that works with me, she knows, like, we try to go back to these concepts all the time because it's so easy to get busy with everything else that you do and forget those fundamental things, right, that move that customer into adopting your product. So hopefully this was useful. We'll share the presentation, right? There's a bunch of links and stuff that you can find if you want to dig deeper into the jobs to be done framework. I hope you enjoyed it.